So, Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, it came out early access around December 24, and it was around this time that I specifically picked up the game for the first time and started playing it. Well, this was having no prior knowledge on the project or the team behind it, and I guess you could say it was a bit of a gamble purchase for me. I've had no previous experience with EverQuest other than seeing a few videos sort of here and there, and, well, truthfully no experience with this sort of style of MMO ever, really. It was very much alien to me. But I'm happy to say after jumping into the game and trying out a few classes, and I really started to get sucked into the gameplay cycle of Pantheon. I loved every moment of it. Every decision, every button you press seemed to have a weight and a reason behind it. I loved the exploration, the moment-to-moment gameplay, the ambience, and even some of the climbing. You know, some people discount the climbing as kind of pointless, but I really enjoyed that you could reach other areas that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. This was something that I hadn't really seen in any other MMO, and I thought was quite quirky. But as much as I was having fun dipping around the world, getting to know the different areas of Thronefast, Wild's End, Avelia, you know, all the early zones, something just felt a little bit off. You see, the real issue was that up until this point, I hadn't really connected with a class. Yeah, I've enjoyed some elements of some classes' utility and the way it plays out, but some things always just felt off to me. I initially had a wizard, which was great and done some amazing damage. The DPS was insane, but that class seemed to really mainly work in a group, and, well, when it came to soloing, let's just say it was an uphill struggle at best sometimes. I also then rolled a warrior. You know, I figured I'd give the old sword and board, maybe dual wielding, that sort of spec a go, and honestly it was a real misery right out the gate, just due to lack of class fantasy, which is a big thing for me, and also the utility. I just really didn't enjoy it at all. Next up, I decided to take a stab at a necromancer. I like the idea of being able to summon a companion to do your bidding for you whilst you kind of see enemies from afar and apply dots on them, and I don't know, it was a step in the right direction, but the whole controller of the undead kind of thing just, it wasn't really my sort of vibe. Now, it's important to note at this point that when I was searching for a class, I do tend to enjoy playing MMOs more solo than necessarily in a group, and Pantheon is no exception. In a game like Pantheon, that's probably not the most viable way, and certainly not the most optimal way to do things, but there's just something so peaceful and gratifying to me about exploring the world solo and passing other people on their travels and passing buffs to each other, and just, I guess, existing in a larger ecosystem, but exploring it on your own, if that makes any sense. I guess I really wanted to find a class that I could soak in the world with whilst still feeling part of it. Well, I'm happy to say that a class that has very much been that sort of vibe is actually Pantheon's latest addition to the game, at least at the stage of this recording, and that class is the Druid. The Druid in Pantheon, for me, has got to be the most fun, versatile, just outright incredible class in the game, at least for me. Again, now this is going to be somewhat subjective, but if we're talking pure fun, flexibility, and viability, the Druid's up there. It boasts of a class kit that can sustain you in almost any solo enemy interaction, even sometimes up to Orange Con, which is just wild. And for group content, well, it can keep you in fights that otherwise you just shouldn't survive. Not to mention, if you're bringing a Druid to a group party and there is another healer, you are going to make that healer's job a lot easier. Above all else, and outside of the utility, this class for me ticks one major box that I look for in any MMORPG, and that is class fantasy. You see, as much as I love adventuring solo, sometimes the road can get a little bit lonely, so having a companion by your side to explore the world around you is really nice. And, well, with the Druid, level 10, you get access to Herode, which is a form of a companion, but it's a bit more than that. I'm so glad that from level 8 to 10 I didn't take any abilities at all, because the utility we've now got with Herode, our speed boost, Herode's kit is going to make a massive addition. Herode acts as almost a physical extension of your character, a physical extension of the nature around you. Herode has their own class utility, their own abilities that work in synergy with yours, and more importantly, 4 fluffy paws to keep you occupied. And oh God, it's so good adventuring with Herode. It really is great, which I'm sure you probably could have guessed by now that, yeah, for someone like me who is a massive lover of animals but not so much lover of people, this is a big tick in my box. There's a lot of boxes being ticked here. So I guess this video is going to serve as my thoughts as to why the Druid, in my opinion, is one of the best solo classes in the game right now. And for clarity, we're not talking about straight DPS numbers, min-maxing or passing here. This is, again, purely going to be based on fun, flexibility, and viability when navigating through the game. Now, for full clarity, at the recording of this video, my Druid currently sits at level 10, pushing into level 11. And I've just got to say, for the record, this class is incredibly versatile even pre-level 10. But once you get to level 10, the world just opens up to you. You get so many key abilities from 9 to 10. It's such a game changer, and I actually can't wait to see what I have access to a little bit later on in the skill set. First time for me that I really noticed my Druid setting itself apart from other classes was when I first started to come to terms with just how good the self-sustain is on the Druid. I found myself in multiple sticky situations, pulling more mobs than I should have done, which on other classes I would have either had to run away or take a death, where on the Druid it's a very different situation. You just deal with it, and the way that you deal with it is pretty much down to 2 key skills. One of the skills that you're going to want to abuse and will abuse is called Verdant Fire Seed. Now, the ridiculous thing is, Verdant Fire Seed costs virtually hardly any mana to cast, and the cooldown for it is so ridiculously low that it can make some fights really trivial. Absorb again. Absorb again. Wow. And it just full hit. Like, that is such a fucking broken skill. Essentially, with Verdant Fire Seed, you cast this ability in a pinch, and it will then make your character absorb incoming damage to a certain threshold. Once that threshold is depleted, it will then pop the Verdant Fire Seed, and you'll get a huge, I mean, it is a ridiculous amount of healing applied to your character. Oh, I don't like that attack. Are we absorbing all of that? Really? That's insane, dude. I'm sorry, I've said it time and time again, that is just nuts. And even if the threshold of this ability doesn't pop, so if you don't take enough damage, it still works on a duration anyway. So even after that time, the duration ends, whichever, ends first, and you get the heal. And this, I mean, you can use this, I mean, if you're fighting, I mean, even the average enemy, you could use this ability twice in one fight. And the crazy thing is, even if you feel yourself running out of resources, you have access to an ability which instantly restores 20% of your mana to be able to use the same skill again. We're also not factoring in the other skills that you've got to work around this, because you could quite easily say, well, what happens when Verdant Fire Seed is on cooldown, which is a perfectly valid question. You use your talisman. What I tend to do is open most engagements with a talisman. Your initial talisman will only heal you upon a physical attack, but after a while, if you upgrade it, it will start to heal anyone in your party, or possibly anyone outside of the party, actually. I've not tested that hits that enemy with physical damage. So essentially, during the downtime of Verdant Fire Seed, if that's on cooldown, providing you're hitting the enemy with physical attacks, you're still being healed. You've just got, with a Druid, it just seems you've got this constant flow of healing coming in and out and in and out. And the best bit about it is you have an instant vine attack, which it also it classes as physical damage. So you can essentially get 2 heals off of your talisman whilst you wait, and that's about 2 heals depending on what weapon you wield. That's 2 heals every couple of seconds, and then you can pop your Verdant Fire Seed, heal back up to full, and essentially melee the enemy down. The sheer survivability of this class is just unreal. I no longer walk into most situations going, okay, I really need to be careful now if I pull 2 white mobs or 2 blue mobs, or, you know, or whatever the case may be. I can quite confidently on the Druid approach a yellow con mob and know with full confidence that worst comes to worst, it might be a bit of a slower fight. I can save up some of my resources by not using my dart and just heal over time and just out heal the damage. It's kind of wild. In fact, early on, one of the only things I really noticed about the Druid, which I didn't necessarily like, but this is a very small gripe, was the fact that you don't seem to have an instant heal until you get to like level 10 when you unlock Herode, who can then heal for you. The Druid in Pantheon really doesn't feel like it fits in one of the 4 categories. The tank, the healer, the DPS, or the support. It kind of is all of the 4 categories. You have so much self-sustain, you know, that you can essentially tank for yourself if you wanted to. Don't get me wrong, you know, you're not going to be leading parties into dungeons and, you know, taking on grouped or chevron mobs on your own. But out in the open world, solo, you are absolutely more than viable to take on majority of the enemies that you come across. In terms of healing, you've absolutely got that down. Once you get to level 10, this only amplifies even more with the form of Herode, like we touched on. In terms of DPS, you have some great damage over time abilities in the form of Beehive. You've got Dart, you've got an instant cast Vine, you can open gaps for people. I mean, I'm missing more here, but the ability is there. In terms of CCing, you have a root that you can, you know, cast on. If you pull 1 or 2 more enemies, you can CC them. Not to mention, from the support front, you have a number of buffs which increase health and armor class and movement speed, and I mean, the list goes on, even health regeneration. This class really does fit into every single category. It's also really nice playing a class that you have the ability to resurrect fallen allies on, or people that you see out in the open world, especially when you're playing solo. Those moment-to-moment connections when you're helping people really just adds to the experience. I really love the flexibility of the Druid, where you can kind of choose almost your I guess rules of engagement, how you want a fight to play out. I mean, I was grouping with really kind person who was playing a monk that was just kind of like showing me some areas, some mobs that I've not seen before, and we were having a blast. And even at the time, they were level 10 or 11, and they were, you know, much higher than some of the mobs that we were fighting. But even they got themselves into some sticky situations, and I was able to heal them, or at least put a temporary invulnerability on them, that I was then able to get them out of those situations, heal where needed, buff where needed, and also do damage where required. We even found ourselves fighting chevron mobs and mobs that were typically designed for a 5 or 6 man party, and it just seemed with the healing output and the healing capabilities that we had access to, as well as the damage output from the monk, we were able to take them down with just 2 of us. You know, I wouldn't feel as comfortable doing that if I was on my wizard. Sure, I could put the damage out, but in terms of sustaining and surviving the fight, I don't think that would honestly be possible. Above all else, I really like Pantheon's take on the Druid. I love the fact that it's not all about shape-shifting and becoming different forms of an animal. I love the fact that the Druid is an extension of nature rather than inherently becoming it. I love the idea that you and Herode are in sync. Instead of the multiple forms that you would stereotypically shapeshift into, Herode has different styles of forms built into its utility, whether it's utility to support you directly or your allies. Do you want increased potency that Herode can channel through you, or do you want increased potency for healing onto other members of your party? I mean, just going back to touch on the utility alone, the game right now as it stands does not have any form of mounts. In fact, the quickest way to really get around from port to port is, of course, if you find yourself a wizard that can teleport you across. But otherwise, if you're just running around, taking use of movement speed buffs is really nice. And especially as someone who mainly plays solo, I love to be able to cast those buffs on myself and get from A to B as quick as possible. All in all though, I'm really excited to see where the Druid goes from 10 onwards, because if it's anything like the first 10 levels, and I'm hoping 10 to 20 really brings the class kit even more online than where we currently are. So I guess if you take anything from this video, if you are looking to play the game solo, or if you have a limited amount of time, or just generally don't fancy partying up with people, give the Druid a try. It is To be quite honest with you, it's changed how I play Pantheon. It's changed my enjoyment from Pantheon, and I'm probably having the best time now in the game than I have done in a little while. If you enjoyed this sort of video, please do consider leaving a like rating, subscribe if you're new here, and I'll see you in the next one.